Hey you all, just a quick video with some updates. First of all, I want to definitely say something about some people who keep me pushing on. Yesterday afternoon, we had large, majorly destructive storms which made their way through the south of Nashville area. I wasn't at the spot where the huge tornado passed over I-65, but I live about 3 to 4 minutes farther up the interstate. This is just some footage. I was trying to capture the storm system moving in and place my phone on a stand pointed towards the front, but nothing major happened as the worst was several miles south. This ended up being a nationally recognized tornado, which CNN and all sorts of media have been covering. Lots of injuries, and at least 2 people perished in Tennessee from these storms. But I want to say thank you to people who were checking on me, knowing I'm in this area, and that's what's on my mind this day. The people who actually give a caring feeling about someone. Some of these can be family or those you've maybe known for years, but these are the people who keep striving on with searching out for better living and finding spiritual reasons to make their lives what they're supposed to be. Or some would say, finding God's will for their lives and living it out. But most of these ones I'm referring to have been X'd out of the church of supposedly perfect and caring saints, called Remnant Fellowship, or had fallen victim to Way Down Workshop back in the day. Yet they are so godlike, or have hearts for helping others, genuine, a real caring nature. Thank you. And I want to also give a shout out to some people who, since the last Passover Recap podcast, have sent me information on how they're now, since they've left or been kicked out of Remnant, persevering on, and have been having extremely meaningful Seder meals in various fashions and with various groups. They're continuing to keep these, and some of you have actually attended real Jewish Seders in synagogues, things like that. Despite everything you all have had to go through, leaving this church you've spent so many years supporting, and having to be put down by RF youth or your family members, yet still making effort to live godly lives or search for truth in as much teachings or scriptures as you can. Both of these groups are like the ones who get me through so much of the time. And these people share such interesting stories from their actual experiences. And I wish more people would get to see some of these contrasting things, not just looking at what Remnant has taught. So, with all that said, you all have been so admirable, and I wish you all the best. We must keep continuing on, however. Possibly these kinds of topics could be something to share on if we ever have some sort of live social media streaming event. I've been actually thinking of putting something together or arranging something like that, maybe on Facebook or some social media platform here before too long, where people can either ask questions or get more involved with topics or discussions. And if nothing else, maybe even just get to know each other better or connect or hear each other's stories, which is always a good way to heal or process. I know people have been already doing things like this, but let's see. And if it happens, I'll definitely keep you all posted way ahead of time. Something which I want to bring up. There was a brief mention of me on the radio 2 or 3 weeks ago. It wasn't a big time thing, but it was something someone who happened to be listening that morning sent me a DM with the heads up, and there was something said on it I want to make sure people are clear about. First, I'll play it for you all. So, this is on a Nashville talk show segment called The Morning News with Dan Mandis, which is on 99.7 WTN FM radio here in Nashville. He was interviewing Phil Williams, which surely most all of you listening from this whole Nashville area or who've seen HBO Max's documentary The Way Down or have been watching these exposing remnant videos would know who that is. And somehow they got around to asking about how we initially started talking before my News Channel 5 interview. So it starts with Phil talking about how he's consistently overwhelmed with how much information that he gets sent.
And, there's just not enough of me to investigate everything that I would like to investigate. And there's not enough of, reporters on our team to investigate everything that we would like to investigate.
All right. I've got one more. And I found this really fascinating. And that was Michael Shamblin. Now, for me, I was not around when that original story was going on. But you had a very contentious relationship with the Shamblin family. And Michael Shamblin, Gwen Shamblin's son, reached out to you years after your original reporting on their church.
20 years ago, would you ever have imagined that you and I would be sitting down talking like this?
Phil, 20 years ago, early on in Remnant, you were the devil.
The devil?
Oh, yes. You were Satan incarnate to the Remnant early on.
And then you guys just reconnected. And I thought that was fascinating because obviously you were, as he said, the devil incarnate. Then his mom dies in that plane crash, and he reaches out to you and kind of basically realized that your reporting on the church was true. And it was actually something, as he looked back on, he realized that he was a little too harsh on you.
And that's a good example of what we were talking about earlier with treating people as human beings. After his mother died, I sent him a little message of condolence, sorry to hear about your mother. And then later, after his dad died, I just acknowledged, his loss. And so that was how the door was opened, just treating him as a human being. And he came around and decided that I had been right and that he was ready to tell his story and he wanted to tell me his story. And so, but again, despite my reputation, I really do try to treat people as human beings, even if they've been the subject of investigations.
Listening to that, you can hear a little more into the mindset Phil Williams uses when he's investigating leads. So, with that said, I just want to add that with everything mentioned, there could possibly have been some confusion about who initiated these communications. Not that this is much of a big deal, but I just want for the people that I hold dear to realize that Phil was the one reaching out to me initially. Here's a couple of screenshots from my X account. You can see he first reached out after I released my Down song on YouTube, knowing I'd left the church, and then sent another reminder right on the week of the Super Bowl in February. This was also right after I'd gotten through meeting and spending time with some ex-RF members that had been kicked out of the church for ridiculous reasons, having done nothing wrong, as well as hearing about some other extraordinarily troubling things happening. And keep in mind, my wife was on the verge of remarrying a remnant worship leader who I'd been friends with for many years. So many other things happening. So thinking everything through, I spent the whole night wondering, and the next morning I sent him an X message saying, let's do it. I've described it to people saying it almost felt like something bigger was making this happen. And after that interview aired, messages started pouring in, and things which I had not even personally heard about before. And one thing led to another, and so here we are. For the record, I'd like to say Phil Williams is the ultimate professional. He treated me with such respect, and it was highly appreciated, and it was hugely helpful. He's a seriously intelligent person who makes this extremely stressful type exposing stuff look easy. So with all that, a huge thank you to this admirable investigative reporter. And with all that, hope you all are doing as good as possible, and keep watching for the next part with the Passover Recap podcast. Until next time, keep it real.